Hey, Masters, if you know me and you've been listening to my podcast, you know health and nutrition is number one. Check out AdvoCare products. I am a distributor. Go to livelongersmarter.com. We got everything you could imagine for your health and nutrition goals. If you're interested, at the end of the podcast, at the very end, there'll be more information on the products. Also, Land Voice is one of our sponsors. They have amazing services. If you need leads, please check out Land Voice for FSBO, expired, circle prospecting, a dialer, whatever you need. Go to davidihill.com. Affiliates, you can click the Land Voice link and all of the special opportunities will be there.
Get ready for one more sale. Inspiring you with ideas through powerful and engaging interviews with top performers of their field. Now, join us as we discuss techniques and strategies of the coolest and most successful people on the planet.
One thing that I think surprises people when they hear me talk to for sale by owners is sometimes a for sale by owner will say, well, I don't know if I want to hire an agent right now, or I don't know if I want to work with you. I typically say to them, if we're being honest, I don't know if I want to work with you. The goal of this conversation would be to see what it is that you need and if we can solve that problem for you. Not only do agents get uncomfortable with the silence, which is ironic because that's really a good time to let the heavy lifting work for you. When you don't bulldoze over them with your questions, it actually gives them the opportunity to respond, and then you need to take the opportunity to respond back to whatever they said.
Hey, Masters, welcome to another episode of Path to Mastery. Listen, I just first off want to thank you guys. This is episode number 63, and without you listening every week, we would not be able to continue. So thank you for subscribing. Thank you for telling other people about us because I get so many emails. And just thank you. Guys, listen, this week we're with Kelly Henderson. She is a rock star agent and MAPS coach, and just does a lot of great things in the real estate realm. And she's got a team that does about 20 million volume, and she's very rarely involved in the day-to-day activity. She's just killing it. And she talks to us really, guys, about purpose, about being purposeful with our business and what we focus on. And we had a great conversation. I mean, we're a little all over the place, but it's just awesome stuff. I mean, we talk about farming. We talk about for sale by owners. She does a phenomenal for sale by owner role play with us that, guys, sharing some stuff I hadn't heard before. Anytime I hear something that I hadn't heard before, I love it. And just a great interview, man. She did awesome. So enjoy this. And listen, please, I always ask, please keep us in mind for referrals. Central Massachusetts, look at the state of Mass. We're right in the center. We will take phenomenal care of your clients, and you'll be happy that you referred us. That's our goal. So thank you for that. Enjoy Kelly. The interview's awesome. Please share it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go to iTunes, subscribe to our podcast, and if we deserve it, give us a review. You guys rock. Have an awesome day. Enjoy Kelly Henderson. Hey, Masters, welcome to another episode of Path to Mastery. And listen, guys, today I went out and I found you something really, really cool out of the Phoenix, Arizona area. And it's Kelly. What's up, Kelly Henderson? What's going on, Kelly?
Thank you so much for having me, David.
Yeah, you got it. And thanks for taking the time to spend with us. And I know you because we've been on a couple panels together at Family Reunion. I know you're big with FSBOs anyway, FSBOs and expireds. You also understand, you have a team. You did about 20 million volume last year, just you, and I believe you have a buyer's agent. And now you're in the process of bringing that team to, we used to call it maybe the 7th level, but now you mentioned maybe it's like the 5th level because you're still involved.
Yep, still very involved. To me, and according to the model, 7th level would be where someone's truly removed. Maybe they're doing an hour a week on their business. Right now, I'm still pretty full-time, and then moving forward in probably the next month, I will move into more of a 15 to 20 hour a week in the business.
Got it. Okay, and I know you're also looking at some other opportunities as well, which is great, and that's the cool thing about being able to, leverage these teams and bring them to a place where they run themselves, where we can actually go off and do other things that we love doing, right?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, and I'm grateful that KW gives us those opportunities.
So how long have you been into business, Kelly? I know you've only, well, you tell me, how long have you been in business?
I got my license at the end of 2011, so I've been in production for just over 5 years.
Okay, just over 5 years. And fill in a few more blanks maybe about your intro, how you got started in real estate, where your business came from. Why don't you fill in some of those gaps for our listeners?
Yeah, I graduated from college in 2011, and after deciding kind of against going to get my master's, I found myself kind of lost in life. Talked to a few advisors I had at college, and one just tossed out the idea of real estate, and I jumped on it. So I started school a couple days later. That conversation was probably in August. I got my license in November, and then just started boots on the ground running. I think like a lot of new agents, I was trying to do everything and getting absolutely nothing done. So I had my closing in April of that next year, so about 5 months later. And I've been going strong ever since. So started my business with really a sphere of influence, kind of Facebook, a couple little goodies like that. And then as my business has grown and really as I've matured as an agent, we started to pick up more purposeful sources of business. Not that we don't still do that stuff. Our sphere of influence has been and always will be our number one source of business. But the question is, if you're only always working your sphere, how quickly is that going to grow? And so that's when we brought in for sale by owners and expireds as a way to increase our haven't met category with sellers who are ready, willing, and able. We just need to overcome some objections.
So is that what you mean when you say purposeful forms of business? Tell us more about that. When you say that, what does that mean?
To me, like Facebook, while we make a ton of money off of it, you're just hoping someone shows up to you, right? That's more of a marketing activity, in my opinion, or the way that we do our Facebook branding is very marketing heavy as opposed to prospecting. And so when I consider purposeful business to be where you're proactively going to find buyers and sellers. So for us, on the seller side of that would be for sale by owners and expireds. And on the buyer side, that would be open houses, door knocking, circle dialing, things like that.
So what I'm hearing is, it's kind of like we talk about reactive versus proactive, right? Just sitting around waiting for business as opposed to going out there and finding business. Yeah.
I think you can make a living with kind of a reactive state of waiting, but you really create a business when you're being proactive.
Yeah, and I think there's a pretty low ceiling there as well, where if you want to get through that ceiling, a lot of times we have to do some of those other things, which we're going to talk about, like FSBOs and expireds and such. So when did you know that you really needed to be more proactive? Like, how did you figure that out in your business?
So one of the opportunities we have at Keller Williams is attending Bold, and that's how I started my business. I actually went to Bold before I even got my license. Bold started in September that year, which is right when I started going to school, and then I got my license in November. It's just how I've always been raised in the business. And so the first few times I went, I remember kind of this feeling of drinking from the fire hose. Not only was I learning just high-level stuff, but I really didn't even know how to write a contract yet. So it kind of was always overwhelming, but every time I went back, my goal was, what can I learn this time that was different than last time? I want to say it was maybe my fourth time attending Bold where I said, I'm not leaving Bold without a for sale by owner listing. And I was still pretty terrible at calling for sale by owners then, but even a blind squirrel can find an acorn every now and then. So I got my listing probably week 5 of, not listing in general, but first FSBO listing about halfway through the program that fourth time.
Okay, got it. So I said proactive, but you actually said purposeful. So I just want to make sure I make that correction. So when you talk about that, it's really is focus, and it's focusing on those things that are going to. A good example for me is, we've always been a prospecting based team, but we hit a ceiling with that. So you can only go so far on prospecting. Eventually, you want to break through that ceiling. You need to incorporate marketing, right? So what are some of those things that maybe you did in order to kind of get from where you were to, okay, last year we did 20 million and what's next for us?
We're pretty much exactly where you're describing us. For us, we got to 20 million pretty much solely based on prospecting, working with our sphere of influence, working with for sale by owners and expireds. So moving forward, the items that we have been implementing at a really high level are more purposeful farming. So I chose a farm right when I got into the business just because I liked the neighborhood. It was one close to where I lived, good price point, blah, blah, blah. But the turnover rate was way too low. There's not really an agent ownership in that area, but it was just too low of a turnover. So we finally came to terms where we needed to red light, green light that expense and pulled out the stop sign to say no more. So what we did is we had a title company go through and do some really in-depth research for us, which I highly recommend before picking a farm. What I asked for were neighborhoods in Phoenix or Scottsdale, which is our predominant market, that had at least I believe I requested a 10% turnover rate, with no agents doing more than 20% of annual business, single-family homes, non-gated communities. That might have been the initial criteria. So a couple geographic areas kind of surfaced from that. And what we found is that an area that was actually really close to our old farm, meaning that they've already seen our branding before, was some of those pockets were running a 25% turnover rate.
Wow.
And what I did is I took a couple of those hot neighborhoods with that 25% turnover rate, and I drew a bigger geographic area around it. And I said, what does this area look like? So what they then did is went through and pulled all the numbers on every neighborhood in that geographic area, and they gave me the breakdown. There were a couple teeny subdivisions that were in maybe the 5 to 7% turnover ratio, but the majority of them were at least 12% or higher. Now, in Kenny Klaus's farming designation, the CLME, I believe is what it's called, we learned that you want to at least look at a 7% turnover ratio. And then the higher it is from there, obviously the easier you're gonna have a chance at getting that business. So that's we picked our new farm. Started with an 8x8 campaign and then moved into a 12x12.
So for our listeners that aren't Keller Williams agents, describe an 8x8 and a 12x12.
8x8 campaign would be 8 touches in 8 weeks. So the more purposeful you are about the touches, the higher your return is going to be. So if you send out 8 postcards, you're getting somewhere. I'm not knocking that. And it's not going to make as much of a statement as if you're door knocking, holding an open house, circle dialing, whatever the case is. So we spread ours out between a combination of proactive touches as well as kind of a more reactive touch like a postcard. And then a 12 direct campaign is 12 touches across 12 months. And so typically when you have a farm, that's what you're going to convert over to after you've kind of built a foundation. You're just going to want to communicate with them regularly. So when it's time to sell, they think of you.
I love it. This is very purposeful. So when you talk about the 8x8, like you said, a lot of us will kind of just say, okay, I'm going to send 8 emails or 8 postcards. But how important is it to make those other touches? You know, the phone call, the door knock, are those part of what you do as well?
Yeah. And so what it does is it starts to make you more of a real human. Of course, just like any form of cold calling, it's not going to be great the first time. You know, you really need to create a brand in there, but they need to start putting a name to a face to a voice, the whole 9 yards. So when you call the first time and then they see a couple of your marketing pieces and then you call maybe at the end of your 8x8 campaign, now they actually know who you are that second time around and they remember you from the first conversation. So what I think a lot of people will find is really, really ironic is if they look back over their notes, their notes for, you know, person A might be really grumpy, hung up on me. And then the second time you talk to them after they've seen you around, it's much more positive.
Yeah, that's a great point. So the 8x8 is really for somebody you just met, right? You want to create that top of mind. And then the 12 direct is what? What is that?
12 direct is just to stay top of mind. So if you think of it that way, 8x8 building a foundation, a 12 direct would be, you know, maintaining that foundation and really being there when someone's ready. I mean, what you have to keep in mind with farming and really the purpose of marketing in general is that it's not always going to be, you know, that biggest bang for your buck. Sometimes you have to spend some time laying that foundation before it's going to reap the reward. So when someone should choose a farm, what they need to do is sit down and make sure really that they can float it for a year. Because statistically, they're going to need to be touched at least 12 times in order to get something from it. So if you 8x8 and then you do 4 months of touches, you're now 6 months in before theoretically you'll see some business as a return. Now that depends on the turnover rate, but it's important to know that it's not going to be as immediate as calling a for sale by owner or as an expired.
Well, that's actually really good to know because, you know, when I thought of farming in the past, and I'll be honest with you, we're just starting our first farming now. I heard, you know, it takes a couple of years before you get any return. So a lot of times that alone being so impatient, like, it's not even worth doing, right?
I think in some farms it definitely can take that long. It really depends on what you're up against. And in a farm with a lower turnover rate, definitely that's going to come up. Or in a farm where an agent might already have a lot of market share. Like we have a neighborhood in the Scottsdale area where there's an agent who has about 40% market share. If you wanted to own that neighborhood, you have some ground to make up. If of homes go to the same agent and you're door knocking and they say like, oh, well, if we sell our house, we'll use that agent. You're at an uphill battle. So in a situation like that, I might ask somebody, what makes you choose that neighborhood in the first place? And could we find something that's similar?
Yeah, I get that. And the other thing I'm thinking too is I need to have Kenny on my podcast because I have not had Kenny on yet. And I don't think we've talked about farming yet. So this is brilliant. And I definitely want to utilize you too for what I thought of you when obviously we were on those panels together. I want to say it was 3 panels so far. For sale by owners. I moved into a new neighborhood last July. I've so far gotten 3 postcards from other real estate agents. 2 of them aren't even in this area. And I'm embarrassed to tell you, but there's 2 houses in my neighborhood that are listed with other agents right now. So I said never again. So we'll literally, when I tell you we just started farming 2 weeks ago.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. I can't wait till these listings expire so I can go knock on the doors. All right, so that said, I want to switch gears. Thanks for that. I mean, for our listeners, I want to, everybody will probably go out there now, start farming because that's the easy thing to do. But let's talk about now the more challenging thing, which is these for sale by owners, right? Right now, I don't know if you guys are seeing this, Kelly, but in our market, the market is really, really hot. Inventory's low. So there's tons of for sale by owners. They're popping out of the woodwork every day. Are you seeing that?
I am. And what I think is funny, we have this conversation. I'm a MAPS coach as well. So we talk about this all the time. Our inventory is low and that's something that our clients are discussing all the time. What I think is funny, and I think what some people miss in that is just because inventory sells quickly doesn't mean you have a listing problem. It might mean that you're having a hard time going and getting listings. That I'll give you, but selling them quickly isn't an issue as long as you're working hard to replace it. And so just because inventory is low doesn't mean someone's listing side of their business should suffer at all. In 2015, I forget exactly what the numbers are, but let's say there were 200,000 homes that sold. Obviously, it's way more than that. But let's say nationally 200,000 homes sold. In 2016, 300,000 homes, let's say those sold. Basically what I'm getting at is there was an increase 2015 over 2016 or 2016 over 2015. There were more homes sold in 2016, and yet the average agent complained more about a lower inventory. That's interesting because 50% of those transactions would have been listings, right?
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I get what you're saying, and I think I know where you're going with this. The reality, though, is inventory is a lot lower, so there's a lot more agents. The agent count is higher. Inventory is lower. You got a lot more agents calling, a lot fewer people.
I would agree with you there. So we just need to be better than the other ones, right?
Without question. Absolutely. So let's talk about that then. I mean, you kind of took me down a little bit of a different road, but what are you doing? So when you say, inventory is low, but it shouldn't have an issue on your listing business. So what are some of the things that we should be doing in order so that doesn't affect our listing business?
Well, I think that the main point is getting purposeful. Whereas before it might be easier to just let somebody show up on your door, or maybe you're only competing, maybe you're not even competing against anyone on a listing appointment. You now are. So it's about really taking your tool belt, figuring out where there's holes, sharpening the tools that need to be sharpened so that way you're kind of ready to rock when it comes to anything that could come your way. And FSBOs are one great way to do that. So
you're talking about really mastering your listing presentation, right? So you know what to say, using the right words. Understanding your scripts, your dialogue, just having great conversations, service. I think service goes a long way. That I don't know a lot of us focus enough on that, is really offering that really high level of service, referral business, all those things.
Yeah, I think for us, one thing that, to your question, what stands you apart is our authenticity. So one thing that I think surprises people when they hear me talk to for sale by owners is sometimes a for sale by owner will say, well, I don't know if I want to hire an agent right now, or I don't know if I want to work with you. I typically say to them, if we're being honest, I don't know if I want to work with you. The goal of this conversation would be to see what it is that you need and if we can solve that problem for you. And if we can, awesome. Then at that point in time, it sounds like it would be great for us to work together. But if not, then perfect, because my goal is to work with people who really need my help. Now, do we know for sale by owners really need our help? Yes. National statistics show us they will make less money without us. I already know what the answer to the question is, but I kind of disarm them with my, two-way street approach.
Yeah, I love this because I call them every single day, and I'm still active in the business. And what you said, we know that we can get them more money. I mean, the National Association of Realtor Statistics show, right? But the challenge is they don't know it, and they usually don't believe us.
Right.
And the key is authenticity. You nailed it with that. And if they believe and they feel we're authentic, I think it goes a long way.
You are listening to One More Sale.
Let's do this for our listeners. Let's do a role play. I know you're phenomenal at that. Why don't you give me a buzz? I'll be a for sale by owner. We'll go through that.
All right, ring, ring.
Hello?
Hi, is David there?
Yeah, this is him.
Hey, David. Kelly Henderson with Keller Williams. How are you today?
Oh, I'm good, Kelly. How are you?
Hey, I'm pretty good, thanks. I'm calling about the house that was for sale on Main Street. Is that still available?
Yeah, it's available.
Awesome. I wanted to touch base. Are you guys open to working with agents representing buyers right now?
Well, we kind of just started, Kelly, so we're right now we probably aren't open to that, but if things don't work out, we may be in a couple weeks.
Oh, fascinating. I'd love to learn more about that. So you mentioned you're not open to, if I had a buyer who wanted to buy your house, you wouldn't want us to bring that forward?
Well, I mean, if you had a buyer, how's the buyer, how are you going to get paid though, I guess would be my question.
That's my follow-up question, was to ask you if you were offering a buyer agent commission. In our state, it's common for the seller to pay a buyer agent commission. And so I was curious if you guys were doing that.
We're so new to us. We really hadn't even thought about that. I guess, what are you guys typically looking for?
Oh, well, it's all negotiable, just like anything. But what we like to do first is see if you're open to that. That way, we're not trying to talk to buyers in the event that we find someone and obviously don't get paid off of it.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know, like 1% or something. Would that be okay?
Yeah. Like I said, it's negotiable. So what I'm hearing from you though, is that you're open to getting buyers interested and that's a conversation we could have.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We're open. Honestly, the reason we want to sell this house ourselves is because we're trying to get as much money as we can out of the sale. So ideally we'd rather not pay, but like I said, if a couple weeks it hasn't sold, we probably would be open to that.
Okay, perfect. So your goal is to walk away with the most money possible?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you've gotten a bajillion phone calls from agents, but I'm just curious. Has anyone been able to show you how they could make you more money while representing you?
I love that question. Has anybody been able to show me? No, not yet.
Well, that makes sense, right? Because if they did, you'd be listed with them, not doing it yourself.
That's a good point. Yeah. We have had a lot of agents call too.
I imagine. Well, David, if we're being honest, one of my specialties is working with for sale by owners. In fact, we host seminars for sale by owners, and our goal is really to help them sell it themselves if it's in their best interest. But what we find out with some sale by owners is that they could actually make more money with us. And I'm curious if it's, even a possibility that could happen. Would it be worth a quick 15-minute conversation?
Well, how would you guys be able to make more money? Obviously we're selling the house for what we're asking. How could you guys make more money?
That's a great question. Well, I'd love to show you that because like you said, a lot of agents have called you and probably said similar things that no one's been able to show you. So it takes about 15 minutes. I'd love to sit down, run through exactly what we do and show you how it is that we have our clients walk away with more money than they might on their own. So when works best for you? I have some availability this afternoon at 4, or if you prefer weekends, I could do tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Yeah, you know what? I guess so. Why don't you just come by? Yeah, come by this afternoon. That's fine.
Okay, today at 4 is perfect. And then I'm going to do some research before I come over because like I promised you, I don't want to waste your time if I can't help. So my assistant, Ashley, is going to give you a call here in a few minutes to get some information on the house. That way I'm best prepared when I come out today at 4.
Okay, love it. All right.
Ta-da.
Hey, that was good. That was really good. Awesome. Good stuff. Yeah, that's essentially how it goes, right? You're just having a conversation with them. You're not making them wrong. I actually love the question, has anybody able to show you? That's brilliant. I haven't heard that one yet. So I'm going to start using that right away. All my listeners should be doing that as well.
The thing about that is everyone we were talking to said, yeah, everyone's told me that. And what I realized is, well, duh. If anybody had actually made that comment make sense to you, you would have listed with them. And so it's basically a pattern interrupter. They're so used to saying, no, 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 no. And now I'm asking them something that they're like, well, no, that hasn't happened. Like it's causing them to think about it. And it kind of disarms them for a second. Makes them vulnerable to a conversation that makes sense.
Yeah, it's because the question that we usually ask is if I was able to show you a way that I could net you more money, would you be open to working with us? And that's a yes question.
Right.
Where you're asking essentially the same question, but you're turning it into a no question, which I don't know if you ever heard of Chris Voss. He's the one of the lead FBI negotiators, but he has to start all of our calls with, have I caught you at a bad time, so that people can say no. Because when they say no, they're letting their guard down. They're disarming themselves. Something along those lines. Does that make sense? Same thing you said, essentially.
Awesome. Well, I haven't heard it phrased that way, but I like that.
Yeah. So, hey, have I caught you at a bad time, Kelly? Like, no. Okay, great. So, now you're giving me your full attention. And it works. I'd say it works probably 50% of the time. So, all right. So anyway, the other thing you did was you talked about a possibility at the end, right? Even if there was even a possibility. Tell us about that.
The goal is to put doubt in their mind. And so when you use words like that, basically what it causes them to do is to have to say, there's no possible way you could make me more money. And every now and then you get the person who, that's their belief, and they have a really hard time getting past that. So you might have to do a lot more in-depth objection handling with that. But for the most part, most people understand that possibility is always an option. So if you put doubt in their head and you kind of say it like that to really make them think about it, if there's a possibility we could even make you more money, it'd be worth 15 minutes of your time, wouldn't it? 15 minutes isn't much time. Side note, our appointments never last 15 minutes, but it gets our foot in the door. And by the time we're there, the reason it goes over is because they're the ones asking questions. So we don't really ever have an issue with either of those options. But if you can create doubt in their head, now you're getting somewhere and you're more likely to get the appointment.
Love it. What's the biggest mistake that you see agents make with for sale by owners?
That they don't listen. They answer a question and the agent just moves forward with the script. And that's really common with people who are new to using scripts because they're trying to follow them, right? So that makes sense. And what happens is that's not going to be successful. So the odds are they're going to stop using scripts before they get to the point in time where they're actually comfortable enough with the script to be able to go off course. And I really think that that's why people have such a hard time with for sale by owners and quit so quickly.
That's a good point.
So think of the script as a roadmap. So say you type in an address onto your phone and it gives you your directions and you miss one of them. And so you're kind of going off a new path and it's going to recalculate your route for you and then plug you back into where you're supposed to be. We need to take that same approach to using scripts. If you follow that script word for word, you're going to sound like an idiot. So when you ask them something that elicits any other sort of response besides what you are already 100% prepared for, what you need to do is hear what they said, respond to it appropriately, and then make a transition back to your script. That way, a script is a script. You should use it. You need to follow it. That's what's going to give you success. And if you don't act like a human, you're not going to get good results.
Yeah, great point. Love it. Yeah, so listening is key. I hear a lot, and you said with new agents, I see it with all agents. Not all, but a lot is, they'll ask a question and not even let the person answer the question.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if I could show you how I can net you more money, would you be interested in selling the house? And by the way, like they don't even stop and let the person answer it.
Yeah, I think with that it's twofold. So not only do agents get uncomfortable with the silence, which is ironic because that's really a good time to let the heavy lifting work for you. When you don't bulldoze over them with your questions, it actually gives them the opportunity to respond, and then you need to take the opportunity to respond back to whatever they said. Giving silence is super helpful. And then the other thing that I find, because as you can hear, I'm a super fast talker, but you really have to slow down on the phone. And I found that the faster I spoke, the more often I got hung up on because people aren't even hearing what you're saying. We're used to saying these scripts. So we could say them fast to another agent and they can keep up because they already know what's supposed to happen, but they don't. So if it's the first time someone has ever heard something and you're trying to talk to them about complex issues, you have to slow down. Otherwise, they're just going to get frustrated because their brains aren't keeping up.
Oh, that's brilliant. You're absolutely right. So, Kelly, question for you. I mean, when times are tough and, we're getting ready to wrap up now, so a couple more questions. When times are tough for you and you're dealing with challenges, I mean, what do you do to keep moving forward, to stay focused, stay purposeful?
Recognize that lead gen is your one thing. And I know, so that alone is a difficult enough concept to keep in mind. So it's easy to let the other activities bog us down. I think that's what's helpful with a coach, is that you can have someone who's constantly holding you accountable to those activities. So whether it's someone in your office, a mentor, a coach you pay, whoever it is, there needs to be someone who holds your feet to the fire when times get tough, who doesn't buy into whatever excuse you're giving them. So that's what works best for me when it comes to staying accountable to those results.
That's great. Something I tend to do, and I don't know, I just caught myself the other, which is not a bad thing. When things aren't going right, I end up prospecting. It's weird. I'll go and I'll just start calling like expireds or something. I don't know. I might be the anomaly.
Really person on the planet who that's their reaction to when things aren't going well.
I may be. So
that problem.
Yeah, I found myself doing that a couple of times, and I think I'm just so used to it. I've been doing it for so long. I mean, I was on the phones at 17, and here I am almost 30 years later. So anyway, that said, enough about me. First, I just want to tell you, I appreciate your time. Anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
I think a lot of people often ask me about how do I organize my time. And I think that since we're on this kind of lead gen conversation, that's one great way to do it. If you have a paper calendar, take a red pen. If you have a digital calendar, open up a new to-do item and time block out your lead gen for the year. I mean, realistically, if that's the most important thing in your business, which it is, if we like to admit it or not, put it in your calendar for that 9 to 11 time slot or whenever you want to do it and block it out for the whole year. Put your vacations on and then put your lead gen on. And that will help you at least have it on your calendar. And I think for myself, for a lot of my clients, that's a really good way to start kind of that first step forward into protecting that time. And of course, if people need to talk about that at a higher level, I'd be honored to help.
Awesome. We'll talk in a minute about how to get in touch with you. So based on what you know today, 6 years later, 5 years later, what would you have done different in the beginning?
Focus on purposeful lead generation quicker. When I look at my business in those first few years, the fact that I was successful is sheer luck. I mean, luck and real hard work. But hard work is only going to take you so far. Then you need to start getting purposeful and being really smart about it. Otherwise, you're either going to get burnt out or you're not going to make enough money. Thankfully, I learned at an appropriate time that wasn't what was going to work out in the long run.
Kelly, what's a book beyond The One Thing and The Millionaire Real Estate Agent? Because we all know those ones. What's your one book recommendation that anybody who wants to get purposeful needs to read?
People want to get purposeful. I think if you're having a hard time with lead generation, start with the compound effect. Really teaches us that all of our activities compound on each other to create big success. And when you're starting lead gen, I think it's really hard to see that because you could go a couple weeks without even setting an appointment if you're brand new to it. But understanding that, every little piece you put in that bucket, eventually something's going to pop out of the bucket. And so the effect is very helpful with that. Yeah,
that's Darren Hardy's book. It's called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And listen, for all of my listeners, you can go get yourself a free audio copy of that. Just go to davidsfreebook.com, davidsfreebook.com. Get yourself a free audio version of that book. So, Kelly, how do our listeners get in touch with you?
The email is usually the best. So my email is Kelly, Kelly, and it's my team name, Momentum, momentumre, like realestate.com, Kelly@momentumre.com. And I'm here, of course, for any Phoenix referrals that might come out. But if anybody just has questions or things that they want help with, or if they're interested in coaching but have questions about that, that's what I'm here for.
Awesome. Good stuff, Kelly. I don't know if I'd give my email out, but you're probably going to get about 10,000 emails now. But
hey, bring it on.
So bring it on. I love it. In final question, the podcast is called Path to Mastery, Kelly. We're helping people, leading people on their path to mastery. What is the one thing you want our listeners to take from this interview today on their path to mastery? Mastery
is built one day at a time. So take a little bit of lead gen and put that in your toolbox. That way you can actually afford a business that causes you to get excited every day. Lead gen might not be the fun stuff, but it's going to be what makes you the money.
Thank you, my friend. Awesome.
Thank you.
Hey, Masters, you guys know how important health and nutrition is to me. I just want to talk to you a little bit about products I use called AdvoCare. I've been using these products for about a year and a half now, mostly just for energy. They've got a really awesome drink. It's called Spark. If you want to check out anything, I would tell you, go check out the energy drink Spark. That's what I did for, like I said, almost a year and a half without even trying any of their other products. And then this past January, a bunch of us, January 4th, decided we were going to do the 24-day challenge, which is a 10-day cleanse and then 14 days of just really healthy eating, vitamins, meal replacement, just awesome 24 days just to kind of get yourself on track and get into some right habits. So Richie Ryan did it with us. Guys, he lost, today's February 5th, I think he's at 24 pounds lost since January 4th. Melissa at our office lost 6 pounds. Min at our office lost 5 pounds. Guys, I mean, listen, it's amazing. Regardless, if your goal is losing weight, my goal wasn't losing weight. I did the challenge just so I could experience it. And, I lost a few pounds, but now I put some weight back on because I started using some of the supplements and the protein powder and all the other stuff. So now I've gained about 3 pounds of muscle and just feel awesome. My energy's through the roof. So whether you're looking for energy or you're looking for just wellness, I mean, they've got some amazing green products that I love taking before I go to bed. Or if you're looking for performance, athletic products, we've got the athletic performance products. And then just active, if you're an active adult, maybe getting a little older in the age and you want to just keep everything working the right way and functioning. Listen, Gary Keller said it best. If you don't take care of your body, where are you going to live? And I just love that. So, hey, I just ask you to check out Advocate's products. I'm a distributor, so I'd love to help you, talk to you about your nutrition and health goals. You go to livelongersmarter.com, livelongersmarter.com.
You are listening to One More Sale with your host, David I. Hill, author of the Sales Playbook. Get your copy at www.thesalesplaybook.net.